Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be discussing on Canto 1, Chapter 11, verse 32, and the chapter is entitled The Entrance of Lord Krishna into Dwarka. The class will be given by His Grace Balabhadra Bhattacharya Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances.
Haribo, Maharaj, accept
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada. Ready?
Yep, it's all yours, Prabhu. You can rock with it.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Vardhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari, Yashoda Nandana, Brajajana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana, Brajajana Ranjana, Jamuna Tira Vanachari, Jamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Vardhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Vardhari, Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Jamuna Tira Vanachari, Jamuna Tira Vanachari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Stotarasita Shishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitilila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Stotarasita Shishimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Go Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Gun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Nilachala Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaunitai Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Sarat Bihari Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki. Jamunamai Gangamai Ki. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki. Harinam Sankirtan Ki. Sankirtan Jagna Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from first canto, 11th chapter, text number 32. Tam atmajar drishtibir antaratmana duranta bhava parire bire patim nirudam apyashravat ambunetrayor vilajatinam briguvarja vaiklavat. Tam atmajayar dristibir antaratmana duranta bhava parire bire patim nirudam apyashravat ambunetrayor valajatinam briguvarja vaiklavat. Tam atmajayar dristibir antaratmana duranta bhava parire bire patim nirudam apyashravat ambunetrayor Vilajatinam Briguvarja Vaiklava. Vishnu Guru.
Samatmaja Drishtibir Antaratmana Duranta Bhava Parire Bhire Pating Niruddhamapya Shravadambunetrayor Vilajatinam Briguvarya Vaiklavat.
Tamatmaja drishti berataratmana duranta bhava parire bire patim irudhamapyas ravadam putra netrayor vilajatinam preguvarya vaiklavat.
Someone else? Okay, word for word. Tam, him, the Lord, Atma Jai, by the sons, Dristibi, by the sight, Antara Atmana, by the innermost part of the heart, Duranta Bhava, insuperable, ecstasy, Parire Bire, embraced, Patim, husband, Niruddham, choked up, Api, in spite of, Ashravat, tears, Ambu, like drops of water, Netrayo, from the eyes, Vilajatinam, of those situated in shyness, Brigu Varja, O chief of the Brigus, Vaiklavat, inadvertently. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Insuperable ecstasy was so strong that the queens who were shy first embraced the Lord in the innermost recesses of their hearts. Then they embraced him visually, and then they sent their sons to embrace him, which is equal to personal embracing. But, O chief amongst the Brigus, though they tried to restrain their feelings, they inadvertently shed tears. Report. Although due to feminine shyness, there were many hindrances to embracing the dear husband, Lord Shri Krishna. The queens performed that act by seeing him, by putting him in the cores of their hearts, and by sending their sons to embrace him. Still, the act remained unfinished. and tears roll down their cheeks despite all endeavors to check them. One indirectly embraces the husband by sending the son to embrace him because the son is developed as part of the mother's body. The embrace of the son is not exactly the embrace of husband and wife from the sexual point of view, but the embrace is satisfaction from the affectionate point of view. The embrace of the eyes is more effective in the conjugal relationship. And thus, according to Sheila Jiva Goswami, there's nothing wrong in such an exchange of feeling between husband and wife. Oma Ganati Mirandasa Jananjanan Slakaya Chaksun Yutamina Tasmai Shri Gurve Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasi Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is a very interesting verse and purport. As I read this purport, I became a little bit, but I just was not sure of this reference that Srila Prabhupada gave about Srila Jiva Goswami. And I tried to research it. I looked in the database. I looked on Google. I just couldn't find, where this is from. I was hoping maybe Vishnu Gada might have some insight on it, but I just don't know of that particular reference. That Srila Jiva Goswami is saying that there's nothing wrong in such an exchange of feeling between husband and wife. But be that as it may, Srila Prabhupada gave that as a statement, which helps us understand a little bit about what's happening here between Krishna and his wives with reference to affection. Because sometimes devotees may or may not be confused about the idea of affectionate relationships. Sometimes we may think that to be somewhat of Maya, to show affection, to show love, to appreciate each other on that level, because we're not this body. So what are we appreciating? Well, we're not appreciating necessarily the body. Of course, because the body is a creation of the Lord, we also appreciate that. We appreciate everything about Krishna's creation. But in reality, we're showing affection for that spiritual being who inhabits temporarily that body, and the love that we develop over time amongst each other is very important. So on one side, we might say, yes, I love my God brothers. I love my God sisters. I love them. On the other side, we may be hesitant to have affection for our wife or wife for a husband or for our children, because that may, in some devotees' minds, appear to be Maya, whereas affection and reciprocation with each other as God brothers and God sisters, that's different. That's a different kind. That's not sexual. That's a different thing. So the indication within husband and wife is always kind of seen as a sexual kind of thing, as Prabhupada uses that word here. The embrace of the son is not exactly the embrace of husband and wife from the sexual point of view. So we filter things always through this sexual point of view. But affection amongst devotees is different, absolutely different in terms of love and affection. So looking at it from the husband and wife perspective is what the topic is here today. How does that happen? So with Krishna and his wives, they all love Krishna so much, 16,108 wives, and Krishna, of course, loves them. But Krishna loves all his parts and parcels, but not in the way in which he may have shown the love for his wives or how they reciprocated with him. The other point here is about shyness. So shyness, or being shy, and I'm speaking from, I'm not giving my opinion, so let me throw that out there in the beginning. I'm not trying to make my opinion about this. It's my understanding or realization from what I've been reading in terms of the idea of shyness. So when I talk about this, I'm not saying this is my opinion, you should all accept it. I'm just saying this is what I understand up to this point. So shyness can be generally attributed to women. Okay, can be. Not that it is, but it can be. So it's not true, because a man can also be shy. It's like some people are shy about speaking. They say the number one fear amongst people is public speaking. So most people are shy So being shy is just it's a principle. It's something that's part of our life, being shy. But generally, we think in terms of women being shy or shyness. So Srila Prabhupada is so amazing. The first thing he says in the purport, feminine shyness. He didn't say shyness as a general principle, feminine shyness, which is something quite special. A man being shy, it's not always acceptable. People don't see that generally in an acceptable way, especially when you're, powerful men and all of that. Being shy, they don't like that. They want men to be powerful leaders. And that's why generally they say, well, women are not good leaders because they're too shy. They're just too hesitant to take leadership, but that's not necessarily true. So anyway, this shyness, and I had to look it up just to make sure I'm on the right thought about this. Being shy, being reserved or having or showing nervousness or timidity in the company of other people. That is shyness. So we know that the queens of Krishna were very shy to express their true feelings publicly. Similarly, in the pastime of Sudama Vipra, when he finally left Krishna's association and came back to his quote unquote village, but now it became like a kingdom. His wife became so beautiful and there were so many beautiful people and beautiful buildings. And she from a distance received her husband. She didn't just run up and grab him. Oh, my dear husband, I miss you so much. And then publicly just grabbing him from a distance due to shyness. A key point here, which I picked up on in reading this repeatedly, is the idea of feminine shyness being a power. And Srila Prabhupada refers to this in the first canto, 9th chapter, text 27, especially in the purport. So let's read that. He then explained, now this is Bhishma Dev doing this. He then explained by divisions, acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. Purport. As far as the women class are concerned, they are accepted as a power of inspiration for men. So that's the first point that Srila Prabhupada says, that they're accepted as a power of inspiration for men. He goes on to clarify. As such, women are more powerful than men. Should I repeat that? Prabhupada says, as such, women are more powerful than men. Mighty Julius Caesar was controlled by a Cleopatra. Such powerful women are controlled by shyness. So let me stop there for a second, though. That's really what struck me, this idea of controlled by shyness. Shyness is like a virtue for women, and it controls their output, their activities, being shy. Why? Because women know or can be aware that they are powerful. Physically, they have the power to attract even the greatest men, as Srila Prabhupada said about Julius Caesar. He was so attracted to Cleopatra. She was extraordinarily beautiful. So just without even speaking, she practically conquered him because of her beauty. So this shyness applied consciously, intelligently, is part of the nature of advanced women. In other words, they understand their power. They understand that their physical presence has power. Generally speaking, in our ISKCON movement, especially in the temples, women cover their heads, with the sari and all those kinds of things. Of course, in Islam, they cover everything all the way down to the eyes, with the gloves on their hands, nothing to be shown. It might be a little excessive, but that's the standard. And even going back into the history of America, women being shy was part of the culture. They used to wear these kind of hats. I think like the Quakers and different people, they wear these little hats in different ways to conceal their bodies. I'm not sure if they were aware of the power of their body, but that's part of it. So in our movement, the women try to be as conscious of that as possible. Now, another point I wanted to make is that, from my understanding, shyness does not mean a lack of skill, lack of ability, lack of intelligence, lack of anything. I'm just taking it from the point of Sheila Prabhupada saying the women are controlled by shyness. It's a principle they use in order to understand the power that they wield, the power that they have inherently just by being a female. So that idea of the women being controlled by their shyness is very, very nicely stated by Sheila Prabhupada. Then he goes on, therefore shyness is important for women. Sheila Prabhupada is saying shyness is important for women. Once this control valve is loosened, so he's speaking in such a way to give us a visual, using a term like control valve, just like you have water, and the power of water is very powerful. It can just rush, even in your faucet. So you have a control valve. You want this much water, not that much water, just a little bit more. Then you can shut it off. So this control valve, once the valve is loosened, women can create havoc in society by adultery. So once if they stop using the power of shyness and start exhibiting the body in such a way in order to flaunt the power that they have, meaning women, and women are very conscious of that, the power of their bodies. It's like women put on bikinis and, skinny clothing. And then, in our growing up back in the 60s, it was the mini skirt. Prabhupada referred to that mini skirts several times. Those are women wearing skirts really high and their bodies are showing and all that. Now, there's nothing wrong with the body of a woman. It's the body given to you by Krishna. But there's a power which can be done, it can be exhibited in certain ways to cause, as Prabhupada says, havoc in society. Now, maybe that's not the intention of women who dress in certain ways to create havoc in society, but the analysis by Srila Prabhupada is that it does, so therefore we have to be careful. Adultery means production of unwanted children known as Varna Sankara, which is discussed in Bhagavad Gita, first chapter, this Varna Sankara, and they disturb the whole world, which is a whole nother subject matter, is Varna Sankara. Now the big discussion about abortion and unwanted pregnancies. So the Vedic solution for that is Garbhadam Samskar, different ways of controlling sex life for the purpose of procreation. Otherwise, practice celibacy. So that's a problem in our society. So then we produce children, and then they say, well, there's not going to be a man involved, and the child's going to grow up bad. That means unwanted population. That means it's not. So Planned Parenthood. We talk about Planned Parenthood. So the planning starts before the conception. The husband and the wife, the man and the woman should become self-realized. Otherwise, don't become a father, mother, teacher, guru. Don't become any of those things. Even the idea of guru. Don't become a guru if you cannot liberate your dependents. And we've seen many instances in our history and also history of the world and the history of our movement where gurus have, fallen away from their vows, should not even consider doing that. So becoming a father and a mother is a big responsibility. It's not just the enjoyment of sex life. It's a major responsibility. So in order to prepare for that, one should make sure that they're fixed in Krishna consciousness so that they can attract the proper spirit souls into their lives. And then by example, because example is better than precept, by example, help guide those persons on the path of devotional service. And that's a very important principle. So the man and the woman, the relationship is very, very important. And the idea of controlling through shyness. And I also want to mention that for the men, so what is our control valve? Because you said for the women, it's shyness. And if they're not shy and they start flaunting their power in society, it could lead to Varna Sankara, which means unplanned, pregnancies and so on and so forth. So what about the men? As I said from the beginning, again, I'm not trying to give my opinions, just my understanding. That generally we don't apply the word shy to men that much. I'm sure in many cases we do, but generally speaking. So what about the men? my understanding would be humility. That's a very powerful controlling valve for men and women as well, for everyone. But let's say specifically for men, because men have a tendency to be a little bit proud, a little bit powerful because of their bodies. Like I said, the women have a power in their bodies, and it's a power that attracts, you can say sexually, but it's a beauty. Women have a certain standard of beauty. And why we go to the lowest denominator is it's just part of life, where men immediately think of sex when they see a woman. It should not be that, but that's generally what happens. But they're beautiful. Women are beautiful. So that beauty is a manifestation of Krishna. So why not see women as Krishna's gopis? I believe Sheila Prabhupada mentioned that one time. These are all Krishna's gopis. So beautiful, so nice. So men, if we employ the principle of humility, as I said, just to punctuate it, everyone should be humble. Lord Chaitanya didn't say Trinadapi Suniche enough only for men. Everyone should be humble. But I'm just saying men, because we have these physical bodies that are a little bit stronger and so on and so forth, we might tend to become a little bit too proud. Everyone is affected by pride, but I'm speaking specifically about men. So this humility. And many times I refer to the Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, text 8 through 12, and those principles that are mentioned there as principles of knowledge. And the first one being amanitvam, humility, and then pridelessness, but humility especially. So if we, as women, should use shyness by understanding the power of their bodies, just their physical presence. The men, and again, everyone should, but I'm saying specifically men should use the power of humility. It's a very powerful weapon to be humble. Like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how did he win the hearts of Prakashananda Saraswati and all his disciples? He showed humility. He didn't even go inside. He sat outside of their place, near the place where people washed their feet. And then Prakashananda came out with him, and understanding the level of his humility, was so impressed. So there are many examples. Haridas Thakur did not go inside the Jagannath temple out of humility, not shyness, humility. Srila Prabhupada himself demonstrated, exhibited humility on a level that we can't even imagine how he served his disciples, or just the people who were coming to his first preaching programs, cooking for them, cleaning for them, so many things he was doing out of humility. So I just say that for us, for men, it's a very important control valve. For women, shyness is a very important control valve. But again, neither word is exclusive to either sex or gender, okay? We should all be humble. We should all be shy. But Srila Prabhupada is specifically speaking about women in this regard. Now, the verse from yesterday is also very interesting. The purport, Srila Prabhupada says, according to Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there was a regular psychological reaction on the occasion. First of all, rising from their seats, although they wanted to see their husband, they were deterred. Now, we talked about, control. Now we're talking about being deterred. So they were deterred because of feminine shyness. It stopped them. Deterred. It's like, a detour, deterred, it's like you go in and you stop. So that shyness stopped them, controlled them. But due to strong ecstasy, they overcame that stage of weakness and became caught up with the idea of embracing the Lord. So the ecstasy was so great that even the feminine shyness control valve didn't work. It was like they were just caught up in the ecstasy of seeing Krishna, seeing their wonderful husband. So on that basis, sometimes devotees will just go past whatever their so-called limitations are to serve the Lord. Just like I was not I guess I was an outgoing person because I was a musician and I sang in nightclubs and all that business. But when I first started doing Sankirtan, then I became shy. I wasn't shy to sing on stage. I wasn't shy to be in front of hundreds of people. But when it came time to speak the philosophy with one person, then I became shy. I was like, so-called humble. I had to overcome that. I remember the process of overcoming that. by seeing the examples of devotees like Charu Deshna and being in the company of people like Tripurari and Pragosh and Vaishasika, I saw how they overcame whatever it might have been in their minds to serve Srila Prabhupada, to give that living entity connection to Krishna. So here, the wives of Krishna, in order to have his association, they're overcoming shyness for that purpose, not overcoming shyness to attract people sexually, but to serve the Lord, to be in his presence. In fact, just by seeing the Lord, it was equal to, tantamount to being with him. But still, they wanted to have that embrace, so on and so forth. So getting past that shyness or humility for the service of the Lord, in my understanding, those would be the circumstances whereby we can bypass or transgress those control valves. In the example I just gave, which is Sankirtan. Most people, when they start Sankirtan, are very shy, okay? And humble, maybe, I'm not sure, but shy for sure. Very hesitant to go. But then gradually, by doing it for Prabhupada, especially, I just remember the mentality was, I have to do this for Srila Prabhupada, in spite of my limitations, in spite of my inability. I don't even know the English language enough to even talk. I remember several times meeting some very, very prestigious people at the Atlanta airport. I'm talking professors and musicians and rock stars. All of those different people. I've seen them in the movies. I've seen them on TV. And I just had to overcome my shyness and just boom. So the one specific example is this person, his name is Stokely Carmichael. Stokely Carmichael is one of the original Black radicals of the 60s, very well-known personality. I think he changed his name later. I can't remember now, Stokely Carmichael. So I knew who he was because I was into that kind of thing as a young African-American. So I knew him immediately when I saw his face coming through the Atlanta airport. In my mind, I thought, I have to give him Prabhupada. I have to, somehow or another, I have to do it. So with boldness, I stopped him and shook his hand. I said, Stokely Carmichael. He went, hey, how you doing? And I sold him 3 of Prabhupada's books. He gave a donation of $15. That was one of my proudest moments, giving that man who I knew his mindset, Srila Prabhupada's books, and he accepted them graciously. But I had to overcome my shyness, my quote unquote weakness, my inabilities, because I had to do that service for Srila Prabhupada. And another time I met Michael Jackson. Everyone knows Michael Jackson. Okay. So I was working at the airport, and this lady who was selling flowers, she knew me very well. She said, Benny, there's Michael Jackson. There's Michael, because she knew that I'm always approaching everybody constantly all day. Hey, Benny, there's Michael Jackson. So I just ran over to Michael. Hey, Michael, Hare Krishna. And he was like, oh, thank you, brother. It was a beautiful exchange, but I had to overcome that being mesmerized by Michael Jackson, one of my heroes from the 60s. My God. So I'm just saying that for the sake of serving Krishna, we can go beyond our limitations. We just throw them away to serve Krishna. Why? Because Krishna will give us the intelligence. We have to have confidence that Krishna will supply what we need, preserve what we have. We may have come to Krishna consciousness with so many things. Might have been money, might have been education, could have been careers in different fields, So for the most part, the leadership of our movement generally looks at the skill sets of the devotees and try to engage them according to their abilities, generally speaking. But sometimes they ask us to do things out of our comfort zone. We have different reactions. What's it called? Fright or flight, or however they say that, Sometimes we just freak out. We just don't want to do it. Sometimes people leave the movement if they're asked to do things that are too much outside their comfort zone. But those who are smart, they realize that, wait a minute, Krishna can give me what I need to do my service, whatever that service might be. If it's like recently I had to go speak at a convention. It's the Convention of Catholic Scholars. It's the largest Catholic scholar convention in the country. And I was requested to be part of the panel. And for a couple of days, I was thinking, what am I going to say to these people? These are PhDs and scholars from all over the country. And I said, no, just depend on Srila Prabhupada. And that's exactly what I did. And they appreciated it. It was very, very nice. I really appreciated their inviting me to be there. So again, my point being that the wives of Krishna, controlled by shyness, They've overcome that shyness in order to serve the Lord more intimately. So we, as servants of Srila Prabhupada, we have our designated disqualifications, whether you're Black, African American, you're white, Caucasian, or you're female, or you're from India, you have a college degree, no college degree, you didn't even finish high school, whatever it might be, no skill set, no job history, all that business. But when there's a chance to serve Krishna, we should follow the example of the gopis and the wives of Krishna and great souls like Haridas Thakur and so on and so forth, that for the service of the Lord, we will go beyond our limitations to serve the Lord. So that's part of what I got from this verse and purport today. Again, shyness for women doesn't mean a lack of intelligence, a lack of ability. It's a power that can be used positively or negatively. Men also, we have powers that can be used positively or negatively. So in order to control them, that control valve for the men, I would say, is humility. And for women, Srila Prabhupada always said it. He already said it here, is shyness. Using it, not, but then I was reading this morning and someone was analyzing, saying, well, shyness could also be an exhibition of pride. But that's not what Prabhupada said. It's something I was reading about shyness, that a woman's shy and she's proud of her shyness, wields it in a certain way, not like that, but in a humble way. So therefore we put those two things together, shy and humble, as Lord Chaitanya has given us that process of being humble, like a blade of grass, tolerant like a tree. And then again, Srila Prabhupada defining humility in the Bhagavad Gita, text 8 through 12, chapter 13. Humility means not being anxious for the satisfaction of being honored by others. And to some degree, that definition I gave you of shyness, being reserved or having or showing nervousness or timidity in the company of other people. So they kind of have similar connotations. So we should always be humble. Women should specifically, especially try to be as shy as possible, not flaunt their power, specifically the power of the body. And, you know, there's certain things, the way women can look, the way a woman can look at a man and completely knock him off his feet, like boom. And they know that, and they use that power. But in Krishna consciousness, our women generally don't do that. Our women are so special in this movement, so kind. And so that's why it's a great honor to call the women mother. It's a great honor, Mataji. That's an honor, Mataji. G, just when you add G, that's like an honor. Like Balabhadra Ji. When I go to Indian people's homes, they say Balabhadra Ji, or Vishnugadar Ji, or Mataji. That Ji makes it kind of, very special. So our Matajis are very special. I remember being a brahmachari. You might find this interesting. As a brahmachari, I used to take 5 women on Sankirtan every day. 5. Just me in the van with 5 women. And one time specifically, it was just myself and one Mataji. Now, I don't say that that's the standard thing, but we were on Sankirtan. We were sent out on Sankirtan. Together, my dear god sister, Mother Swaha, we got initiated the same day in Chicago with Srila Prabhupada. I was so protective of this Mataji. And she was so confident that I'm not thinking in a lusty way. I'm thinking in a protective way of this Mataji, devotee. So our women are very important, very special. It was interesting. Jadurani, one of our senior Srila Prabhupada disciples, I brought her to Atlanta. She stayed with us in Atlanta, and she started her art program in Atlanta. Very famous artist in this kind. So she was giving a Bhagavatam class during our Panihati festival. And Jaya Dvaita Maharaj told me specifically, I have to go to my senior god sister's class. And here's this sannyasi sitting at the front of the class while Jadurani is giving the class. And I thought it was such a beautiful example, the respect that we have for our Matajis, whether we're sannyasi or whatever. Like Lord Chaitanya's respect for his mother was so deep that even, he stayed in Jagannath Puri so that she could get some idea of how his life is going. We couldn't stay with her being a sannyasi, but he stayed, in a certain way that the message could go to her, how her son was doing. He's so respectful to his mother. So our women are precious. They're valuable. We should protect them. The women should utilize shyness in a very nice way, proper way, study what Srila Prabhupada says here. And that way we can have a very harmonious, productive movement going forward without having to downgrade or downplay or to make the women feel less, thinking that, oh, you know, you should always be like this or be like that. No, our women are very important, very special. And of course, now we won't get into that discussion, but the idea about women being guru has become such a big discussion in our movement. So I heard something the other day from my god sister, Vishaka. Most of you know Vishaka and Yadubar. So Vishaka made a statement that was so powerful. She said, Srila Prabhupada in India had to defend his, mainly at that time, Western white men disciples to the sadhus in India, because they were absolutely against these white body or black body people from America becoming sannyasis and Vaishnavas. And they criticized Prabhupada up and down. So Mother Vishaka Prabhu said, Srila Prabhupada defended these men. And then she said, I'm surprised that now those same men are saying that the women can't do this, just like the Indians used to say the American men can't be Vaishnavas. And those same men who Prabhupada defended are now saying women can't be guru. I just thought it was an interesting perspective that she laid out. I said, wow, that's very powerful. I never thought of it like that. So our movement is not about what the people in India think, although we're respectful to that, or what the people in America think. It's about what Srila Prabhupada taught and personally demonstrated, and that's how we go forward. He showed respect to our women. All of us men should show respect to our women. The women were respectful in the presence of Srila Prabhupada, so they should always be like that, always that shyness, in order to be most effective in a communal or societal situation. So I want to stop there, and hopefully, maybe Vishnu Gadal would like to share something, or anyone else have any ideas they would like to share, or questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Such a wonderful class. Very important class, very nice points, sensitive points, but very, very relevant to our Krishna consciousness. Thank you for bringing it up. But yes, Vishigata Prabhu, please go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhu, August Prabhupada.
To Srila Prabhupada in mind. I was taking this a little other direction.
Sure.
So the wives of Krishna were there, and they embraced him, Lord Krishna, within their hearts, then with their mind and with their eyes, and then by sending their sons. But they didn't embrace Lord Krishna personally, physically,
Right.
or what you call physically, which is a very interesting point. Not that they never embraced Lord Krishna, because you read in the Lord Krishna's daily activities that when the rooster crowed, the queens would be angry, curse the rooster, because they had been embracing Lord Krishna in his bedroom all night. So the embraces were there between Lord Krishna and his queens, but not in public.
Yes.
Not in public, which in Indian society and American society, but more, and it's particularly became noticeable in Indian society, even in the movies up till like 1970 something, they never showed kissing between a man and a woman in the movies.
Yes.
Because it was considered provocative and not a good thing. But then at a certain point they changed that. But sometime in the late 70s, it was a big deal. Though I think Prince Charles made a comment about it. In fact, so the embraces were there, but just not in public. So, did Srila Prabhupada ever embrace female disciples?
I never heard that he did. Of course, as a sannyasi, That would be a standard he would definitely set. So I don't think any, well, especially sannyasi, Srila Prabhupada is the highest level for us, but any sannyasi, there's no question of doing that, period. There's no provision, there's no circumstance where that would be permissible. But
what about if somebody's not a sannyasi?
Well, it's still the principle being, I would say no. Yeah, it should not be done either publicly or even privately. But does it happen?
Okay.
Probably.
Okay. Yeah, it's just an interesting point. So it's not that there's no embrace between the husband and wife, but it's just not in the public sector like here, where it's out in the public. And it's interesting contrast because the wives of Krishna were very shy, but a few verses back we said that there was very famous prostitutes coming.
Yeah.
So there's quite a. It didn't appear that, I mean, from the description, it didn't appear that they were being very shy. Apparently, yeah. Another comment is, the verse from the Chanakya Pandit that Srila Prabhupada would often quote is Matrivat Paradareshu. Matrivat Paradareshu Paradravyeshu Lostravat Atmavat Sarvabhuteshu Sapashyati Sapandita Yapashiti Sapandita. One who sees every other woman, man, that means except the wife as mother. That's a learned person. So, but sometimes we find that in ISKCON, even I hear that, it goes a little bit overboard. We see that the husbands are calling their wives mother. You ever see that? I see that. I hear that. Yeah.
That's a little strange.
The Prabhupada didn't agree with that. And in fact, he used to chide. There was the famous Ramakrishna. He got married, Ramakrishna.
Yeah.
In the 19th century, he got married, and he called his wife Mother Sharada. And Prabhupada would chide that this is not the method. Mata. And sometimes we find that other ladies call other ladies mother also. So that's something that I don't think never happened during Prabhupada's presence that I know of. They were called. I mean, they could call them mother, but usually they were called Prabhu. And there was a big discussion between various scholars and Sanskrit people that Prabhu is masculine, the word Prabhu. But Hridayananda Maharaj gave a pretty thorough description that no, it can be used in any case, in any way. So that's there's a little bit of controversy in this area.
Oh yeah.
But so just calling other women other than the wife as mother is Chanakya Pandit. That's standard. Yeah. Hariyasha Prabhu said because sometimes it's kind of a little funny that you have a old man like me, and then you're some little 12-year-old girl or 15-year-old girl. What do you do? Say Hariyasha Prabhu says, little mothers. You're little mother. I noticed that. Yeah. And you made a good point about the shyness. That shyness in the service of Lord Krishna, sometimes you'll have to overcome that or put it aside.
Yeah.
Because some of the best book distributors and Sankirtan book distributors were the women.
Absolutely.
And so it was, there would be a competition, but most often the women were the have higher book distribution scores. Interesting point about shyness also is that who's the father of India? They say is the father of India. Who's that?
They say Gandhi, right?
Yeah, Mohandas Gandhi. So he was a barrister, a lawyer, barrister in his professional life. Started off in Bombay at that time. Then he went to after a while he went to South Africa. Then he came back. But when he was a lawyer in Bombay, he was so afraid of speaking in public that he would never go to the court. to present cases. He would always hire somebody. You know, he'd try to he'd develop the case, but he'd hire somebody to speak publicly because he couldn't do it.
Mm. Wow.
So nervous about public speaking. But later, of course, he was speaking to thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people, because he was moved by a particular purpose, what he thought was the high purpose of Swaraj or nationalism. So in the same way, devotees with a higher purpose of serving Krishna, even though for themselves, for their own purpose, they might be very guarded, shy, but for spreading Krishna consciousness, might be able to speak for 10,000 in front of thousands, tens of thousands of people.
Wow.
And actually challenge ourselves to do that, learn how to do that, to spread Krishna consciousness. Those are just a few points.
Beautiful points. And you just made me think of Sheila Prabhupada and how he basically stated in his Bhagavatam that this is not my language. It's going to be fraught with many inconsistencies based on that fact. But Prabhupada, coming from India, never having been to America before, no idea about this culture, because there was no internet, there was no way to research it during that time. So he must have been, you're just seeing this whole situation. In fact, he mentioned that in his prayers. Most of the people here are in ignorance and passion, forgetting you, my Lord. So many things he was thinking. So he overcame whatever his limitations were: language, clothing, no money, old age, all those things. He just went, boom, blasted right past that for Krishna. So that's an example we know we have to follow. That no matter how limited we think we are, if there's a chance, an opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness, we have to take it. I remember when I was on Harinam one day after Donald Trump became president, and I keep making this statement: when was the last time you saw any Hare Krishna devotee being interviewed on TV, or any Indian sadhu or saint being interviewed on TV asking what we think? And everyone goes, I don't remember a time. I said, the last person was me, because I was on Harinam right after Donald Trump was elected. The TV station, one of the main stations in Atlanta, the guy stopped his truck in the middle of the street, came up to me and said, can I interview you about what you think about Donald Trump? I said, sure, come on. He's put microphones on all the devotees, and the kirtan was blasting. So that night on the news, there Balabhadra talking about my opinion about Donald. I said, well, he's the president, but he should be careful how he speaks, because whatever he's saying is an example. And I quoted the verse, Yad Yada Charti Shrestha. That's okay, fine. So I had to overcome TV, camera, business, all that stuff. I knew it'd be on TV that evening. Who cares? This is for Prabhupada. So when we're given an opportunity to serve, then we have to go outside of our comfort zone. We should have faith in Krishna, that if this is for Krishna's pleasure, if it's an authorized activity confirmed by Srila Prabhupada, the Acharyas and the Shastra, then I have to do it. Even though it's difficult, I have to do it by Krishna's grace. I remember this last comment, my godbrother Charadeshna, who Vishnu Gadad knows very well. Charadeshna was one of the best Sankirtan devotees in the movement at that time. He was the first one to do 200 books in one day. And Prabhupada mentioned that in a letter. So Charadeshna said, I know I'm in Maya. He used to say this, I know I'm in Maya, but I got to go out on Sankirtan. I just got to do it. I got to do this for Prabhupada. So it was amazing just being around him, watching him. Even to this day, Charadeshna's suffering from Parkinson's very seriously. He can barely, his hands are shaking. He can't even chant his japa. He has problems remembering when he's doing the arti, which item to do next, which mantra to chant next. But he'll call me a Balabhadra. What time are you going on Harinam, Prabhu? What time? I want to come today. Do you know what that does to me? All my nonsense goes out the window. Look at this man suffering. Still, he's saying, I have to go out some Sankirtan in spite of my limitations. So that's a graphic example that I'm exposed to almost every week. That even though you might feel yourself limited, but if it's for Krishna and it's the authorized activity, you have to do it. So, Anasuya, back to you.
Thank you, Prabhu. I have a question, if that's okay. I know we're close to time as well.
Mm-hmm.
As you were speaking about Shinas, and a couple of things are coming into my mind, and I would like to ask a question on that. Is, we know Bhagavad Gita says we're not the body, we're spirit souls. And as you were saying, that generally shyness is related to women, although it's also true that men do have that character. I do know some of them, and that's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
It's just their nature. Some call it introvert, some call it extrovert, whatever the term is, and it's completely fine. But for women, Prabhu, because we know we're not the body, but at the same time, we also know that shyness is one of the characteristics, so expected, characteristics of women. And at the same time, sometimes they have to do service very boldly. Where does shyness come into the picture, Prabhu? We have female distributors, book distributors, female cooks, female Sankirtan leaders, female temple presidents, female pujaris. So how does the shyness play in that part? Or are we supposed to always exude that shyness while we have to, at the same time, be bold?
Yeah. I mean, I was referring specifically earlier on that women, as Prabhupada said, it's a power. Okay, and shyness is a control valve for that power. I was speaking more precisely about the power of the physical body of a woman, the voice, the eyes, all those things that they use to attract men. So our women don't do that, try to attract men if they're in a position of power, whatever they might be. Our women are modest. Very modest in their activities, whether they're in. So if you're responsible, like for yourself, you're responsible for that community. So yes, your shyness is there, but your service is also there. So because of your service, you have to speak to men. You have to speak to, like when you put on Rath Yatra, I'm sure you had to organize and talk to the city and get permits, and you can't play around with that stuff. You got to be tough. Hey man, come on. Hey, what's going on? Hey, this, that, boom, boom. And I've seen women do that. Okay. But when it comes to just, you have to be shy. But that shyness I'm speaking of specifically is that ability to attract men sexually. That control valve. Don't use your power to, and Prabhupada said it, Cleopatra is a great example. She attracted Julius Caesar with her beauty. So when women do that, that's outside the scope of Krishna consciousness. So does that mean women can't wear beautiful saris? No, it doesn't mean that. It means the men have to be a little bit, get their act together. Women should dress nicely for events and festivals and all those kinds of things at home for the family, whatever. So the shyness of the woman controlling their power that can attract men is what I'm speaking of, and what Srila Prabhupada referred to here. That's why he gave that example of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra. So when you have a service to do, which requires you to speak up, take charge, take a command, give orders, chastise, correct, whatever, then I'd say you have to go beyond that concept of shyness. But again, being aware that the physical form of the woman has power. So don't use that power to get your things done. You know how women sometimes in a position of power, wanting more power, will use their physical bodies to attract men or to get something from men. That's also dangerous. So anyway, Vishnu Gadapu, yes. Haribo.
Hare Krishna. And of course, men use their power to get stuff from women too.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I was just thinking, some people have said that things like, for Rath Yatra, the women shouldn't be, they shouldn't dance and stuff like that. And there's a book, it's called a Bhakta Manual. It was made in Pune, India, by one devotee there. In that Bhakta Manual, it says that women coming to the temple shouldn't dress nicely. They should dress very simply. It says in that, in order not to attract the attention of men. What would you say about that?
I say it's nonsense, to be frank with you.
If you could explain.
So you and I grew up at a time in the 70s with our Matajis, our Prabhus, and we were kind of all there together in the temple room and chanting and dancing, and the women the festivals especially would dress so nicely, because it says, I believe it's in the Krishna book about, oh yeah, the story of Sati and what's his name? Her husband? Lord Shiva
Lord
and
Shiva.
Daksha, yeah. And Sati wanted to go to the program, you know, her father's doing some big program, and she wanted to go, and everyone's going to be dressed nicely. So this idea of dressing nicely for festivals, and like Rath Yatra is one of our main festivals. Should the women not be allowed to wear beautiful saris? Then why the heck do we even sell those beautiful saris all over the world in ISKCON, right? Because yes, it's part of our culture. Should they act in such a way to try to attract men? I think women are generally not always thinking of men. This is a big mistake on the part of men in general. They think women are always trying to attract us. Not necessarily. I mean, they just want to look. Why can't women dress nicely like men? I don't understand. That's something I don't understand. We all try to look nice and sharp, but the women should not. What? I never heard Srila Prabhupada say that. I just never heard it. And I never experienced that growing up in the movement around really nice, beautiful Matajis, but nicely dressed, but being trained to respect them. So this idea that the women should not, you know, they shouldn't even dress nicely so that the men won't be disturbed. That's something I have a big problem with. We don't have time to go into the whole discussion, but I have a big problem with that the women should not do anything to distract the men by just being around. They should always be in the bag. They should be up on the balcony somewhere out of sight. And that's the problem with the movement, is that these women are causing the men to fall down. I've just never agreed with that. Maybe there's some deeper understanding that I don't know, but I just don't agree with that. So that statement that you mentioned from that book, I just think it's ill-informed. Personally, I feel it's immature. Where it came from, who authorized it. I'll give you a quick example. There's another book like that was presented by some devotees from, I believe, Chopati. And the devotees in Atlanta were using that book to train devotees. So they presented it to Hriday Nanda Maharaj one night. So he's looking at it going, he said, what is this? He said, who wrote this? He said, who authorized this? What is it? Some different statements they were making in the book. I don't remember specifically. But he said, who trained the trainers? This book was to train devotees. So he said, who trained these trainers? So they're training these devotees in all these different things. I mean, I just want to see what did Prabhupada say about this particular statement. Like today, I tried my best to stick on what Prabhupada said about shyness as a control valve. I tried my best. Maybe I missed it on certain points. But when you start making these manuals for training bhaktas and training devotees, you have got to make sure Guru, Shastra, Sadhu, not just your opinion, not just a modern way to look at it. I don't even care what they think in India. To me, it's got to be Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. You have to be able to confirm that this is what Srila Prabhupada wanted, what the Acharyas have. You know, even the Acharyas don't always agree sometimes. There's different opinions, but we always have Srila Prabhupada. So that's my thought of Vishnu Gadavu. I just don't accept that statement. I don't accept that concept. That's me. I'm sure there are other devotees who have different views, but as for you ask me specifically, I think personally, I don't mean to be harsh, but I think it's a foolish statement. That's my opinion. And now I gave my opinion, finally.
As my understanding would be, anybody, man, woman, who dresses up nicely, they're doing it, especially when they go to the temple, they're doing it for Krishna's pleasure.
Hari Bo, hallelujah. That's perfect.
Not so they can, get the eye of the. My sense is that the women are kind of, they would not, of course, not everybody, but mostly they don't want to have the eyes of the men after, because they're, they don't want to be singled out that way. Of course, there will be some exceptions, but that's usually the case.
Yeah, why can't they dress? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. The women can't dress nice, but we can. That makes no sense. That's my beautiful son. I'll call him back. So yeah, anyway, I just have a problem with that. I just want to kind of finish with this concept that we're discussing right now. We're going on a little bit more. This is kind of like an Ishtagoshti, where we're discussing spiritual principles together. We don't do enough of this, where, 2 or 3 devotees, 5 or 6 devotees come together and just discuss the philosophy and try to understand from different angles. view and then try to come to something conclusive. And even then, we still may not be 100% on, but at least we, have these discussions with each other. We don't do that enough. We need to do more of that. Just, anyway, that's just my thought. And on a topic like this about women in the movement, men in the movement, it takes a lot of research and sharing and compassion and no agenda. We got to get rid of these agendas. Men with their agendas, women with their agenda. Get rid of the agenda. The agenda is what Prabhupada wanted, the 7 purposes. That's the agenda. It's right lying, it's laid out right there. So, okay, honestly, I know everybody's probably getting hungry. But I'm fine if you want.
I don't have breakfast. I'm enjoying this. I was going to say that just as what Vishuddha Prabhu said is what I was also trained in Krishna consciousness and ISKCON is we dress nicely for the Lord.
Yes.
Beautiful. That is how I was trained. In fact, I think in today's times, at least with the little that I know, I think when women dress up to look pretty and beautiful is not to attract the women, but I think it's the women that want to tell the women, hey, I got the sari from this place. It's the women that talk, they want to show the other friend who was a woman that I look nice too. And I think that's that.
I mean, if I show you my closet, all my kurtas and all the different designs,
Because I've also seen from men, like I know when I got a nice kurta for Prikshit many years ago, few devotees asked him, devotee men, I like your kurta. When you're tired, give it to me. But it's not to attract another woman, But
yes.
and that's how I was also taught. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I remember one class many years ago, Bhaktivedanta Swami mentioned, and this was in Gitanagari, and there was a picture on the wall of Krishna gopis, and he says, see how the gopis are dressed so nicely for the Lord. He said he was relating that we should also dress nicely for the Lord to please the Lord. That's how I was just as Vishuddha Prabhu was mentioning that we dress nicely for the Lord. Yeah.
That's and the thing is that another thing that bothers me, I cannot figure for the life of me how a man can go to the temple in short pants. That I just cannot understand. Maybe Vishnu, you can help me on it, but I just cannot.
Prabhu, what about, I've seen pajamas pants.
Any of that stuff. Because growing up in a Christian background, when you went to the church, you made a special effort to put on nice clothes. I was watching a video of my friend who I sang with years ago. He's a minister and he celebrated 25 years of his ministry. And it was a beautiful service. I mean, we call him Willie Wee, but he's Pastor Williams right now. I call him Willie Wee. So I was watching the people entering his church, and he has a very small church for 25 years, but everyone was meticulously dressed to the hat, to the clothing, and the little fans with Jesus on the picture. Just everything was so nicely done. And people come to our temples, like you said, with pajama pants and short pants. I don't understand it personally. I could never, I just can't imagine. I know even in India, people don't do that as far as I've seen in some of the videos I've seen of India. They don't go to temples like that. Why in ISKCON? Things are lax that you can just come any way you want, even with a hat on your head, just different things. I may be, over emphasizing it, but it just bothers me to see that whenever I see it. Because I'm thinking, here's this man with hairy legs standing in front of Radharani. How can you do that? I just can't imagine that. What do you think, Vishnu? Am I off base too much on that one?
I think usually in ISKCON, devotees have traditionally worn devotional clothing in temples. One time in the early days, there was not much money in temples, so as a brahmachari, all I had was a t-shirt to wear, especially in the middle of winter. It was a little cold. But then at a certain point, we started getting kurtas. But there was always a competition who could get the kurta. But I was heavily chided by the temple president at one point because I continued to wear my t-shirt, of course, dyed saffron color.
Yeah.
But he said, well, it's all it's all just cotton. What's the big deal? It's all just cotton, right? Which is impersonalism. But he was correct. He was correct. You should wear something nice, nice for the Lord. Jayadvaita Swami goes a few steps further in his, when I was talking to him about, we presented the etiquette, temple etiquette. He said it's kind of counterproductive or not recommended. People come into the temple wearing Budweiser t-shirts.
Ooh, Krishna.
Or Philadelphia Eagles t-shirts.
Oh, Krishna.
So what do we do? What are we saying to Krishna? What are we saying? Oh, you're great, but for me, I'm an Eagles fan. That's who I am.
Oh my
or
God.
I like to drink Budweiser beer. So these kinds of things we find. Of course, anybody who comes to the temple, it's good for them. But to improve our consciousness, best if we wear things that are more pleasing to Lord Krishna specifically, and don't attract for other not devotional things.
No, there's a graphic example. I forget which time when I was in Philly. It may have been the last time. We were sitting there doing one of the programs. Oh, it was the Kirtan program. The Kirtan Mela with the youth. So then Dronacharya Prabhu had to go pick up his son, Narayan, from a baseball game. So Narayan comes in with his baseball suit and all dirty and his little hat. And Drona, because all the other youth were dressed up, to the hilt. So Drona took his son out from the temple and made him put on something like more devotional. I thought that was such a nice example as a father.
Very nice example.
Showing his son,
Yes.
He's proud of his son. He's a good baseball player. And the boy was just like, he wasn't trying to be offensive. He just wasn't proper.
He wasn't thinking. Mm-hmm.
And Drona took him out, made him dress nice, and he came back. It was beautiful. So I just think it's wow. Yeah, I love this conversation. Thank you so much. This is very
so helpful for me, Prabhu, because I go through that. Sometimes when I see people coming to the temple with pajamas pants, I've seen shorts and I had to, transcend it as much as I can. But seeing pajamas pants is like Krishna, Chaitanya. Would they wear that if they were going to work?
Or
definitely
college,
not. Or would they wear that if they're going for a wedding? I'm sure the answer is no. Yeah. Then why wear it to see the Lord? Yes. So, it's like, it's just beyond my thinking. Like, I know they won't wear that to a wedding or to work, but this is the Supreme Lord, and this is God. Then why do you come to God in pajamas pants? But then I'm sure if you go to work to please your boss, you'll wear coat and suit.
Or if you have to go to court.
Exactly.
In front of the judge, which I'm interested. I'm not sure who Suzanne is. I'm so impressed that she's still here with us. I'm wondering if you have any comments, Suzanne. I'm just amazed that you're still here as we're going through this. You have any comments or questions? Might be at work. Maybe she can't pick it up.
Might be. Yeah, she's somewhere in US. She has emailed me asking because
so nice.
Yes, a few months ago, and she joins our morning classes because she can't go to a temple in class because of her health. So she's been looking for an online Bhagavatam class, and this is the perfect time. And she's religiously, beautifully has been attending our classes every morning. But she's a nurse, if I'm not mistaken. I think she works as a nurse too. At a hospital, but yeah.
Thank you for being here. Whether you can come on and speak or not, thank you for being here, Suzanne.
Yes.
Encouraging.
She might be shy.
Unlike me. Oops.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you.
One thing.
Yes, Prabhu.
One last thing was, what I did in Atlanta when I was temple president here, to deal with this issue of short pants and, exposing bodies and all that. I made a sign, professionally printed sign, outside the front of the temple, outside the back door of the temple, saying, because people don't know how they should dress when they come. So I told them, no short pants, no revealing clothing for this and that, many things. No, don't come after consuming alcohol and all those kinds of things I put there. And it actually worked. I remember one time some homeless people came and they saw the sign. They said, "Man, it's all right if I come in, man." I said, "Well, you have to wash your feet." And I took care of them. I had devotees assigned to take care of the homeless people instead of everyone complaining about them stinking. We'll help them out. We even had at a certain point, if somebody was someone we knew, we'd help them take a shower. So because they wanted to be part of what we were doing. So yeah, I mean, coming to the temple should be so sacred. Go to court like that? No way. No way you're going to do that because you're trying to, impress the judge. If the president of the United States, you have an audience with the president, and you walk in short pants. I've never seen that in any kind of, when they show on TV, the president meeting with people, they're all nicely dressed. Even rappers, like certain rappers would go meet the president. They dress so nicely. So yeah, I think we should encourage our congregation / train them. They need more training. We shouldn't let people off the hook because they're from India and they might discourage them from giving donations if we become a little bit too strict. It's not even strict. It's just the protocol for entering this sacred space. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I spoke at that Catholic convention, this lady next to me, she was African-American. She's an African-American Jew, very articulate lady, powerful. I couldn't believe it. But in our pre-meeting, she said something so amazing. I had to quote it when I spoke at the main meeting. I said, this sister said to us that we should all understand this space that it was a huge banquet hall. I mean, I am huge. She said, this space has now become sacred because of the subject matter. And we should all respect that. I was like, wow, I had to quote that one. That's powerful. So this temple is sacred for so many reasons. So many reasons. So we shouldn't, if we don't encourage them, spare the rod, spoil the child kind of concept, that's not, if it's not acceptable, then why should we allow it? We should, if necessary, take that person to the side and talk with them specifically about it. Encourage them in a certain way because it's not good. It's just not acceptable. Again, that's my feeling on that.
That's such a good point, Prabhu. Thank you for sharing that. Vishugada Prabhu, would you like to add something, Prabhu?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I was praying that you would be here to help me.
It's always nice to see Vishugada Prabhu join in with your class, Prabhu. It becomes so powerful, like really, really powerful. It's like, it just goes, whoa, like, to the nth degree.
And by the way, that thing you're wearing, that shawl, is beautiful.
Thank you. I heard it. Get it from them.
Very nice. Who gave you that? Who gave you that?
It's actually part of my Punjabi suit. It's one of my dupattas. Wow. Yeah, pretty old, almost about 10 years old. I got old clothes.
Excellent. Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
And we want to thank the devotees for joining us. Sheila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much for a wonderful interactive class.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Take care.
Haribol.